Hey, welcome back to Vox Terra. For today, we're going to talk about the infrastructure bill, the reconciliation bill, what's in that's beneficial to our environment, what's in that's not beneficial to our environment, and what environmental organizations, primarily I'm looking at the Sierra Club, are calling for to have included, especially in that reconciliation bill. And I'm urging you to, after you watch this video, to reach out and contact your senator and your member of the House of Representatives and let them know you want strong environmental and climate action in that infrastructure and reconciliation bills. Now, the bipartisan infrastructure bill passed the Senate, but it has not yet, as of August 20th of 2021, passed the House. Now, because of the power and influence of the fossil fuel petrochemical industries in lobbying our Congress members, that especially within the Republican Party, but within the Democrats also to a lesser extent, that infrastructure bill, its climate provisions are very weakened. But nothing is done yet, so now is the time to speak up. The infrastructure bill left out ending subsidies to fossil fuels. So the Sierra Club and other environmental organizations want those subsidies ended. And when you reach out, let your Congress members know, end subsidies to fossil fuels. Quoting from the Sierra Club press release, American taxpayers continue to subsidize the industry to the tune of $15 billion per year. Okay, and I also cross-reference this to Oil Change International as well as Vox. The Sierra Club pointed out that the industry spent $115 million lobbying Congress in defense of the giveaways, representing a 13,000% return on investment. Item 2 called for by the club, the Sierra Club, I'm just going to call them the club, protect the Arctic Refuge, or ANWR. You might remember the 2017 Republican tax bill opened up ANWR to oil and gas interests. The bill does include some mine cleanup, about $11 billion for abandoned mines, meaning the cleanup for the toxic hazards left behind by coal and other extractions. The club also points out this will create needed jobs in areas that are losing those extraction industries. And I'm pointing out that also represents another subsidy, private profits, public price. That's why renewable energy has seemed expensive for so long compared to fossil fuels. The club points out the bipartisan bill does include money for oil and gas, abandoned oil and gas well cleanup, again, toxic spills left behind, plugging what are called orphaned wells. But again, that highlights how it is public expense, private profit, and why more polluting industries only seem artificially cheap. The club is calling for more accountability for the oil and gas industry, so they have to pay for that cleanup. There is money in the bill for PFAS cleanup. PFAS are known as forever chemicals used in many mundane consumer products like non-stick pans. They are toxic. According to EPA, many contain carcinogens and cause other health problems. So when you think about the environment, even if someone denies climate change, well, these PFAS chemicals are also causing us cancer, and that is what the environmental groups are speaking out about. And you hopefully as well. And further, Frack Tracker, that's a tongue twister, Frack Tracker points out that PFAS chemicals are also known to have been used in fracking and oil and gas extraction. The club pointed out the bipartisan bill contained elements to weaken the National Environmental Policy Act by weakening the environmental review process. So here, we're looking at the whole underpinning of responsibly sited anything, responsibly sited wind, solar, hydro, and also less reckless oil and gas. But we want to get away from oil and gas immediately. The bipartisan bill also contains funding for the Alaska gas pipeline, which according to this article would be the world's largest liquefied natural gas pipeline. Remember, we want to get away from fossil fuel infrastructure. That's just going to tie us down to more of it once that investment is made. What the club is calling for and what we should be calling for is 100% clean renewable energy. Do not be fooled into arguing why it can't be done. There's studies out of Stanford that show how it can be done. So remember, some really brilliant people have put their brains to this. Don't volunteer your brain power, your activism power, to arguing the defense of nuclear and fossil fuels. They have a lot of money to do that for themselves. And if it turns out to be, quote, necessary, they've already got the lobbying power. You don't have to add to it. The club advocates something called CEP, C-E-P-P, or Clean Energy Payment Program. CEP provides, and here I'm quoting from a different website called Third Way, CEP provides payments to utilities that meet targets to sell increasing shares of clean power and requires them to pay for each megawatt of hour they fall short of target. More intuitive for us average people, clean energy tax incentives. Here the club is calling for, again, of course, responsibly cited, offshore, onshore wind, solar, both, rooftop as well as solar farms that are responsibly sited, and then helping connect that grid so you can run your windmills at night and your solar panels at day, connect everything. Grid connectivity, efficiency, and energy storage solutions. They also call to couple that with strong labor standards and domestic manufacturing. That way we are proving wrong the argument about jobs versus the environment. It's not that simple. It's what kind of job. They want more funding for grid resilience. Think about Texas, how this unstable climate we have ushered in, we in quotes have ushered in, left the Texas power grid completely hanging dry. Transportation, the club points out, transportation is by far the largest leading source of carbon pollution. And here I want to point out, if somebody says carbon's not pollution, no one's saying that exactly. We're saying there's too darn much carbon in the atmosphere. Also, remember that same carbon producing pollution is bad for you to breathe in. It's a win-win. Don't argue the other side. They're calling for more funding for electric school buses. Well, that's a big winner right there. Those buses, they're belching out diesel. Diesel's got heavy-duty particulate matter in it and benzene. So those kids with those more vulnerable lungs are breathing that in. Climate or not, it's bad to breathe in. Electric buses are going to be cleaner for those kids to breathe. And people living near the bus routes and bus depots. Well, they point out the current bipartisan bill also provides funding for fossil fuel buses under the, quote, moniker of clean buses. But it does provide funding for electric as well. They're calling for more electric vehicle charging. They said the current bipartisan bill only is about half of what Biden called for in the American Jobs Plan. More funding to expand and electrify public transport so more people around the nation have access to public transit, and they have access not through diesel or even natural gas, but through electrified buses, which let's power them on clean power. Rail, rail has been talked about by environmental organizations since I was a kid. It's a more efficient way to transport people and goods than automobiles and buses. This is a really neat one. Retrofit and electrify public housing, schools, and hospitals. And here they're pointing out Senator Heinrich has introduced the Electrifying America's Future resolution, calling for widespread electrification of appliances using already proven heat pump and electric hot water heating technologies. Okay, so heat pumps, geothermal heat pumps, air source heat pumps, electric appliances instead of natural gas burning. Remember, you got the fracking, you've got the fracking chemicals as well as the methane and the greenhouse gases with the natural gas. Create a civilian climate corps to protect and restore forests, wetlands, support community repairs after storms and floods, expand access to renewable energy. Okay, so a civilian climate corps to restore those natural solutions to the pollution that our consumer-driven economy is, in my opinion, and probably a lot of your opinions, needlessly creating. It's all throwaway, disposable. Well, let's get nature restored so it can handle this stuff, as well as cut back on it. And that core would also be dealing with repairs to municipalities and areas that are getting devastated by this unstable, destabilized climate. And the last one I'm going to point out for you is the club calls to fund 100% of lead pipe replacement. Now, I want to bring that one up, not just because of the known toxins of lead hazard and to say, hey, protecting the environment, even if you don't believe in climate change, it's about our human health as well. I want to point it out because the lead is really brings up a lot of interesting issues. Well, think who holds the toxic lead hot potato. Who's the only, American business owner person or being held responsible for that? That's the owner of an old property for the most part. I have a viewer who took a lead paint training course and learned that the mining interests and the paint interests lobbied the American Congress to keep lead in the paints. But who gets sued? The workman, the worker, workman, workwoman, and the homeowner or the housing provider. That's pretty unfair. So think about it. And also, this is really interesting on Cosmos. Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos, it was ExxonMobil who lobbied to keep lead in the gasoline. The same ExxonMobil who's also been accused of lobbying and spreading disinformation about climate change or helping fund disinformation about climate change. So that's really interesting, I think. So if you are living in the US of A, do not be shy, do not be timid. It matters speaking up. It matters. You gotta speak up. Contact your Congress member, your House of Representative, and your Senate. Contact them and tell them you want strong action on climate and our environment and that infrastructure bill and that reconciliation bill. You want to end subsidies for fossil fuels. You want to transition to clean renewable power and electrification. Just grab a few key points and let them know you're there, you exist, you vote. It's not all just people who have been told this is all a big hoax. It's not just those people voting. Let them know you're here, you exist, and you vote because they are hearing from the other quote unquote side. Hey, I hope you found this video really helpful. Please make sure you subscribe to my channel, you're commenting, you're liking, you click the notification bell. And until next time, as always, peace be with you.